I'm gonna get us started since it is noon. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. My name is Lacey. I am the Administrative and Program Coordinator for CAM, and I'm just gonna start us off with some really quick housekeeping. First, just so everyone knows, the webinar is being recorded. Live captioning is available for the program today, and I will paste the link in the chat box as well as it's here on the screen, but I'll paste it in the chat box in just a couple of seconds. Our presenter today will answer questions at the end of her presentation, and if you have a question, we definitely encourage you to type it into the Q&A feature. You will see the icon at the bottom of your screen, so you can type a question in there, and Sarah will answer them at the end of her presentation. And I will also monitor the chat box, and I'll help her monitor as well. If you have any technical issues, please feel free to message me using the chat box, or you can also send me an email at admin@calmuseums.org, and I will do my best to address it. And now I'm going to pass it off to Celeste DeWald, CAM's Executive Director, to introduce today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. Good evening, or good afternoon, everyone. We will begin with a land acknowledgement. As we begin this event, we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. A land acknowledgement is a critical step towards working with Native communities to secure meaningful partnership and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. Our institutions were founded upon exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. We honor and are grateful for the land we occupy and recognize the ongoing damage of settler colonialism. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. I am on the traditional territory of the Amamutsan Ohlone people. I encourage you to name and acknowledge the Native peoples where you are located in the chat box. And Lacey has posted a URL you could use to look it up if you don't know it. Great, thank you. You can do that now. We'll pause for a moment and allow everybody this opportunity to acknowledge the Native peoples in their area. Thank you very much. The Lunch and Learn program is supported in part by Associated Foundations Incorporated in memory of Barry Herlihy. The CAM Fellowship program that Sara Smallhouse participated in is supported by the Getty Foundation. Live captioning today is supported in part by the National Arts and Disability Center at the University of California, Los Angeles and Ability Center. I also want to acknowledge that CAM received a grant from the California Arts Council, and we're thankful for their support as well. Each year, CAM Fellows write case studies based on sessions that inspired them at our annual conference. These case studies are highlighted as published articles on our website and as part of this Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sara Smallhouse, who was one of our CAM Fellows this year, or is one of our CAM Fellows this year. Sara Smallhouse grew up in Northern California. She completed her Getty Multicultural Internship at the Vincent Price Art Museum on the East Los Angeles campus in 2007. Since receiving her BA in Art History in 2008, she has worked at the Hollywood Bowl Museum, Janet Turner Print Museum, Feline L. Smith Museum of Anthropology, and the Chico History Museum. Sara completed her MA in Art History with coursework in Museum Studies in 2015. She is currently tenure-track Art History faculty at Butte College, where she is developing cultural management courses, and on the board of directors for the Museum of Northern California Art, where she is the vice president. So thank you very much, Sarah. We look forward to learning from you.
Thank you so much, Celeste. I want to welcome everyone. I'm going to take a moment to share my screen. All right, welcome. I'm going to be presenting on the panel that I attended at CAM 2020 called Authentic and Informed Native American and Museum Partnerships. The future is reconciliation. And I'm going to come back to that word reconciliation as I feel it is very, very important. So as Celeste mentioned, I'm currently on the board of directors acting as vice president at the Museum of Northern California Art, or MONCA, here in Chico, California. And I'm very grateful for my co-collaborator, Nikki Lim, executive director of the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center. She provided great feedback and some of the examples that I will be describing today of successful partnerships. And I wanted to take a moment and kind of pull some of the resources, some that came from the conference and just one additional one that I found very helpful. I might refer to these two books, here and there throughout the presentation. I read both and found them extremely useful. So these were recommended by the panelists, Nikki Lim, Christina Inang, and Joelle Proudfit. So the first is The Inconvenient Indian, A Curious Account of Native People in North America by Thomas King. So this is a history. I have a little note here. This is a great source of information from a Native perspective, our Native author Thomas King. It discusses the genocide, assimilation, racism, misappropriation, stereotypes, historical bias, institutional racism, and cultural erasure that forms the historical trauma that affects contemporary Native people. And again, it's centered from a Native perspective from author Thomas King. So I will mention that a couple times in our presentation. Also, Decolonizing Museums by Amy Lonetree, representing Native American national and tribal museums. This is an excellent resource, so I'm going to share just a few examples with you today of successful partnerships. However, it's just the outcome. And so if you're really looking for something that is far more in depth, that discusses some of the pitfalls and the back and forth and the time and things to sort of that level, I really recommend this book. There's 3 very focused case studies that Amy Lonetree focuses in this text. So that is recommended. At the end of the panel discussion that I attended, Joelle Proudfit introduced this upcoming legislation, AB 1968, Tribal Land Acknowledgement 2020. So you could simply Google that and find out what that is. But I do have a little quick summary, and this definitely factors into this presentation. But basically, this legislation for 2021 would authorize the owner or operator of any public school or state or local park, library, or museum in this state to adopt a process by which Native American tribes are properly recognized as traditional stewards of the land on which the school, park, library, or museum is located as specified. So we're going to talk just briefly about land acknowledgements and sort of how they factor into these potential collaborations with between museum and Native groups and tribes and individuals. And also the Native Governance Center, their website has a wonderful guide for developing land acknowledgement. So I just wanted to share these resources with you all in one go as I find them to be so helpful. So what are some of the challenges that come with partnering with local tribes? I'm going to summarize some of these and then some solutions, and then we'll look at some successful outcomes. So some of the challenges are distrust in institutions. So actually, these first 3 here are linked. together. So this distrust in institutions, and museums are a part of them. Museums are, sort of informal education or places of scholarship. And so we definitely can be seen as some of these institutions. But where that distrust might come from is this lived experience of exploitation. So here again, I'd like to point out Thomas King's book. Reading that book really gives you a sense of truly what's at stake here. And museums as institutions, as centers for education, as the outputter of information, there's definitely a power dynamic there that we need to recognize. And I feel, like CAM is a great place for us to reflect on that power and that authority. So again, museums have a troublesome history with collecting, exploiting information, perpetuating stereotypes. And so this is sort of kind of all building into distrust that the potential tribal members might have towards your particular museum and institution. So some of those stereotypes, and again, I learned a lot from Thomas King's book. It gave me a lot of language and understanding on this particular issue. But a lot of people assume that Native groups are the same, that they don't have individualized and distinct identities and practices, beliefs and rituals and so on. But also there's this stereotype that their cultures are long ago, frozen in time, and not really present, living, and dynamic today. And so I really think that our collaboration should, definitely focus on not repeating some of these damaging stereotypes in whatever exhibits we might come up with through our collaboration. Other challenges, of course, are time, resources, and reciprocity. So we'll talk a little bit about reciprocity in just a moment. But at the Native Governance Center website and in their guide for developing land acknowledgements, I found this one quote really helpful to truly understand kind of what's at stake here. So they say, in addition to normal employment and family obligations, Indigenous people are working to heal their traumas, learn their languages, and support their nations. If you reach out for help, lead the conversation by asking an Indigenous person what you can do for them. Chances are they're likely overworked and could use your help. So I think it's really important to remember that, perspectives in these collaborations are coming from a different place. And really where that quote from that website leads me is to more towards solutions for these challenges. So some of the solutions, and this is kind of suggested in that quote, is to attend and assist with tribal events. So, I mean, in building partnerships, be prepared to insert yourselves, your institution, your staff, into being helpful, and to also learning about the culture, learning about the history. My co-collaborator, Nikki Lim, said that, I mean, really coming to the table already having some base information is really, really important, because it shouldn't be the burden of the collaborator, the tribal members, to kind of bring you up to speed. That's really not a good use of their time, and it does kind of put undue stress on them, and therefore deteriorates the partnership. So I think, not only helping, at these events can help you build your relationships and trust, but also helps inform museum staff members as well. Ask again. So what they were discussing in this panel was, don't expect, one immediate answer to your request or inquiry. You might need to take note of when you've asked and then ask again, politely and respectfully, of course. And one of the ways to help initiate this communication is our third bullet point here, which is to cast a wide net. So not only, putting all of your time and faith into one contact, but to research and broaden that as much as possible. Also, to battle the challenges of time and resources is to, consider compensation for consultation. So you're essentially reaching out to the living experts. And so, perhaps compensating them for their time and expertise is a way to make sure that the relationship is reciprocal and mutually beneficial and ultimately respectful. So be sure to, if you're considering that, to make sure that is in your fundraising and budgets as well. Now, this one was a little bit interesting to me, and I hadn't quite thought of it. I think it was Christina Inong was discussing an event that was held at a museum. They were doing some kind of demonstration, and someone who attended from the public took that information and then was trying to sell it for their own benefit. And so, a way to honor the knowledge that you're receiving from these potential collaborators is to perhaps give them private events, events that are just for them, just for that specific community. And that, again, would reduce exploitation. Now, Indigenous futurism and place to strengths, these kind of relate. So essentially, it's really important, and I've seen this in some really great exhibits, to, of course, not only talk about, kind of more ancient traditions from the past of different tribes, but I think it's really important to also promote the idea that these people exist now, that they practice, certain rituals or language now, so that we're combating the stereotype that these tribes only existed a long time ago, and that they're stuck in that box. So that's Indigenous futurism. So it's, I've seen it remedied where, we might have traditional objects, in cases with signage with helpful information, but then there's also photographs of contemporary Native people from that same tribe. And information or interviews from them so that they can share sort of, how complex they are as individuals and as people today. And, okay, and I'll come back to another point in just a moment. So as we enter or have already entered and want to strengthen these partnerships, we should be prepared as museum staff and museum experts to relinquish enough authority. So definitely entering the partnerships, we should draft MOUs, very specific understandings with those tribes so that everything is clear, expectations are clear, and get feedback on how to do that. But there was a really great example that was given at the panel in which the tribe actually came up with a way to code informational labels. So they had some labels that were coded as trigger warnings. They had some labels coded as native knowledge, some as decolonizing points. And so, that coding system totally came from them. And in fact, it actually seemed to, benefit a lot of other people. So in allowing, the museum staff to do things in a different way, I think we could see really great results. And also, we want to play to the strengths of the tribe being represented. So this, again, kind of goes along with Indigenous futurism just a bit, but referring back to Amy Lonetree's book about decolonizing museums, she is a big proponent of making sure that in, the storytelling of Native tribes, that, colonization is mentioned, that it's discussed as ongoing, like not that it just happened and it's done, but it still occurs, and but that it doesn't stop there, that the story doesn't stop there. and also that it doesn't gloss over, kind of the harsher facts. She thinks that's important to healing, and that that it is very valuable. But again, we don't want to leave it there. We don't want to end it in that tragedy. We want to play to the strengths of the particular group being represented, and to their resilience, which, depending on who you're collaborating with, I think you will definitely see. So, and last and not least would be land acknowledgements. So I can't imagine you would want to collaborate with your Native tribe and not be doing this process at the same time. So, I mean, as you're partnering, you should draft the land acknowledgement with them, with their consent, especially if they're the local tribe. And that should be happening at the same time as any other program development is occurring. And I just want to stress that, if we even unintentionally kind of duplicate, these harmful kind of settler colonial behaviors, I mean, that historical trauma has physiological effects. And so we could actually be doing a lot of like physical harm. And it's really important that young Native children who come to see these exhibits really see a future, a potential, and a real like cultural dynamism represented in those stories. So I have a handful of examples. So again, I can't speak too in depth to each one of these, but I think, just by seeing some examples here of kind of how it's worked out well, especially focusing on the element of reciprocity, will be helpful for us today. So the Ohlone Basket Project, this was a partnership between Oakland Museum of California and scholar and Native basket weaver Linda Yamane. And basically, the Oakland Museum of California was looking for a basket, an Ohlone basket, to complete their collection. And there's a practice of burning one's personal possessions upon death that made these baskets hard to find. And also the fact that, the local tribes had a strong cultural loss after the missionaries arrived. And so there was a big hole in this practice of basket weaving. So the museum worked with Linda. Linda was a basket weaver already. She also is just an awesome woman who's, learning and researching old traditional songs. But they worked with her over several years to, research, find, develop these techniques that she has taught to students. She created a basket that now exists in the museum collection, and they have all of this footage and helpful tools that will preserve these techniques for a very long time. So I think we can see how that has lots of mutually beneficial layers. Here we have the continuous thread, and this was a project, I think, spurred by the San Francisco Arts Commission. So where these ladies are standing on this plinth, there was a monument, and that monument was taken down. It was part of a pioneer monument. It was historically inaccurate and had upset people for a long time, and so they took it down. So the Arts Commission worked with 3 Native photographers, and they invited, I think, over 150 tribal people of different tribes to come and be photographed atop this monument. So not only is it this kind of awesome art piece that had performance and a gallery exhibition as well, but it was also a reclamation of this site. And so, again, I think that's a really successful partnership. Now, this is just one part of the Grace Hudson Museum in Ukiah. We're looking at a map of their wild garden. This was a collaboration between the museum, which is an art and history museum, and the local Pomo tribe. And so, working together, they've developed this garden of native plants and other species. And, the partnership is beneficial because they have this living, working agreement where the tribe can come to the garden and harvest supplies for basket weaving. And eventually the museum is still working on providing signage that will give information to visitors on the native plants and land management practices of the Pomo tribe. And so again, a great way to make sure that while it seems to be benefiting everyone and the museum and a general public, that it is, you know, successfully benefiting and reciprocal for the collaborating tribe. And last but certainly not least, Native Voices is a project of the Autry Museum. And I just love this little sentence here. I'm just going to read it. Native Voices provides a supportive, collaborative setting for Native theater artists from across North America and is committed to putting Native narratives at the center of the American story in order to facilitate a more inclusive dialogue on what it means to be American. So produced by the Autry Museum, this is a great theater program that invites playwrights, you know, actors, musicians from, I mean, really a huge spectrum of different tribes to participate in this theater program. And they also have connections with, you know, the Shakespeare Festival and other kind of larger festivals. But it's a great platform for Native American theatrical art and productions and stories. So I hope these again are just sort of the outcomes that we can see. Different ways museums have made these collaborations successfully beneficial to both. But I, of course, refer to those books from the beginning for something a little bit more in-depth. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Celeste, for the introduction. Thank you, Lacey, for her support during these very unusual and crazy times. Thank you, CAM, for this opportunity. I've learned so much, and I really appreciate this organization. And of course, the Getty Foundation has been so pivotal in providing me with opportunities. So a huge thank you to all of those people and entities. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your case study with us. I learned a lot, and I'm so grateful to you. If there's any questions from the attendees, again, we encourage you, please do not be shy. We encourage you to type them in the Q&A or in the chat box, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And we'll allow a few minutes more.
Okay. So it looks like Celeste said, are you planning on piloting any of these recommendations at Monca? And I absolutely am. So I think I acknowledged the Mechoopda Maidu tribe. I am hard at work to try and build connections and build a relationship, although these are already challenging times. But I really would like to create a land acknowledgement for the museum. And I also see a future for a contemporary Native art exhibit. And so I am really grateful for this information and find it very helpful for my own projects. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you, Celeste.
Looks like there's also, I'm not sure if you see it, Sarah, a question from Aida. Is there anything you are taking away or implementing at your, oh, that's the same question, I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay. Okay, that looks like I answered them all. Any last minute questions? Thanks again for coming and for listening to what I had to say. And please come and see the rest of our CAM Fellows. I think the other two are in July, right?
Yes, thank you for that plug. I just have this up on the screen to close out. Thank you again, Sarah, for all of your work and sticking with us through these past couple months. We do have 2 more CAM Fellows to present their case studies July 9th and July 23rd. Their topics are here on the screen, and I hope that you will visit our website, take a look at their case studies, and register. In addition to our other upcoming Lunch and Learns next week. We have one from San Diego Museum of Man on their decolonizing initiatives, which is currently sold out, but we do have a waiting list. We encourage you to sign up for that, and the recording will be posted to YouTube, as well as the recording of Sarah's presentation today. And my last final plug for all of you still on the call is to please, if you love Sarah's presentation, please go read her article as well. It is published on the CAM's website. And thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining. Good.